Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the live Q&A with me, Professor Michael Scott. It is the 20th of July and the sun is shining, so I hope you are having a great day wherever you are in the world right now. I hope that you are all safe and well, and that you are ready to enjoy our half-hour little gallivant through the ancient world. So I have to start off with thanking you and kind of showing my huge appreciation for you guys, all the community of the Professor Michael Scott Facebook page, because I have been utterly blown away by the post that we put up on the 7th of July talking about the costumes that were often handed down from very serious productions, such as kind of that of Richard Burton playing Mark Antony, and then being used by Sid James in Carry On Cleo. And you all came back with your desired names for Carry On films. Now, I didn't know that we were all such Carry On fans, because I am an absolutely massive Carry On film fan. And for those of you watching from outside of the UK, if you're not sure what a Carry On film is, you need to Google it. There were a whole bunch of them through the 60s and 70s and 80s and into the early 90s, I think. Carry On Columbus was the last one. And they were a brilliant cast of actors who did a whole series of utterly slapstick movies where they took the mick out of lots of different social and historical situations, one of which was Carry On Cleo, Carry On Cleopatra, the story of Cleopatra, one of the absolute greats. But you guys have surpassed yourselves with the Carry On suggestions that they never made, but perhaps they should have done. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. These have been absolutely brilliant. Alexis Brown, Carry On Alexander, absolutely. Classic. Why haven't they had a Carry On Alexander? Philip Towler, Carry On at the Olympics. I like this. And you're specifically suggesting the fun that could be had with the female competitor disguised as a man character. Brilliant, absolutely. Kenneth Cope as a nurse in Carry On Matron with his hairy chest coming out over the top of the matron's uniform. I can see that being a genius one. Craig Bridge has suggested Carry On Hercules. You're quite right. Why haven't they made this? Oh, Nathan, right. This was possibly my favourite. Nathan Corelli, Carry On Medea, brackets, Medea, close brackets. Love it, Nathan. Love it. Absolutely. Philip Atwood, Carry On at the Symposium. Good God, can you imagine Sid James at the Symposium? This would be brilliant. Karen Swan has suggested Carry On up Mount Olympus. And lots of you have been suggesting Carry On films with the gods because of the absolute awesome antics that they get up to in Greek mythology. Love this. Mark Reed, Carry On Democracy. What a carry on. Love it. Yes, particularly right now, you might suggest. Don Matthew, I love this title. Carry On the Caryatids. Yes, lovely. A number of you came up with Carry On up the Parthenon, Carry On at the Parthenon, Carry On in the Parthenon. An awful lot of stuff carrying on inside the Parthenon. And now with Dom's Carry On the Caryatids. Don't Carry On Lysistrata from Paul Mangan. Thank you for that. Tim Brewer, one featuring Socrates. Carry on and on and on and on. This is genius. Thank you for this, Tim. Helen Chappell, Carry On Around the Doric Column, or Carry On Up the Doric Column. I think this is brilliant. And perhaps my absolute favourite, Andrew Kerr, you've absolutely nailed this. Carry On Sisyphus. Poor old Sisyphus, rolling that boulder up the hill for all eternity. What a Carry On. I don't know how much of a comedy it would have made, but I love what you're doing with the title. So, everyone, I think this is absolutely brilliant. Any more Carry On titles you want to send in, do send them in via the Facebook page. Or indeed now, Clive, Carry On Charybdis. Yes, indeed. And thank you so much for everyone getting in touch with all your Carry On suggestions. If only the Carry On crew was still with us to be able to carry on making these brilliant films. We might have to contend and think about them and each come up with our own little play scripts and movie scripts, and perhaps we can share a few ideas on the Facebook page. Carry On the Trojan Horse from Lily, absolutely brilliant indeed. Thank you so much. This is great. And I also wanted to talk to you about how fantastic you have all been with your suggestions in response to the question we threw out at the end of the last Q&A. Which was posted by Jonathan Hargreaves. Linda, Carry On Professor Scott. No, I think this would be a very dull film indeed, Linda. Thank you very much, though, indeed, for the suggestion. Jonathan Hargreaves asked on the 3rd of July, who is your ancient hero and why? And do you sometimes struggle to accept their flaws or question your loyalty? Right, so, okay, Jonathan Hargreaves, great question, and you have been coming up with some brilliant answers and suggestions. So for Benjamin Thrussell, it was Ovid, because of his creative, humorous, and exciting command of Latin. For Jeremy M.W. Davies, it was Odysseus, right? Kind of, and he's looking forward to when the movie comes out. Marion Tyndale, the Emperor Hadrian, because he decided to consolidate his empire rather than fight for new territories. He also loved Greece and engaged in building programs, including the good old Hadrian's Wall. Connor Irving, you've suggested your ancient hero and why you struggle to accept their flaws or question your loyalty is Medea. She's a hero in her own right, as she helps Jason find the Golden Fleece and escape her own evil father. She does kill a few innocent people. This I do struggle with. Very glad that you've admitted this, Connor. But the gods, etc., mess with her mind. I mean, yeah, it's a good excuse. So kind of, Connor, it's Medea. Good to know that you do struggle a little bit with the fact that she kills a few innocent people. Brackets, this of course includes her children. David Donlan, Marcus Aurelius, Stoic philosopher, best of the emperors. No one's perfect, but he had fewer flaws than most. Nicely put. Well done, David. Alexis Brown, you've gone for Clytemnestra. Strong, determined, clever, and God help you if you get on her wrong side. So far, I'm not detecting any flaws that you struggle to accept or question your loyalty to her. So Alexis, anyone know Alexis? Be very careful. Don't get on the wrong side of Alexis. Clytemnestra is her hero. Amy Logalbo has been talking about Arminius, right, the German chieftain who fought against and led the Great Rise Up Rebellion, or kind of fight back, if you like, against the Romans in AD 9, inflicting such absolutely fantastic defeat on the Romans. He stands out as a good example of successfully standing up to power and oppression. Surprising that his story has not yet had the big budget Hollywood treatment, and Amy suggests Chris Hemsworth as Arminius. Nice indeed. Kind of Lily, Athena is my study patron and my heroine. Absolutely fantastic. Athena would be yours. Cassandra, everyone's going for Cassandra all of a sudden. So what are the flaws here? What are the flaws that you question your loyalty about? Indeed, kind of let's have a few more of those. Andrew McFarlane has said Publius Helvius Pertinax. Now, who's heard of Publius Helvius Pertinax? He was indeed a Roman emperor for about 3 months. So Andrew likes Publius Helvius Pertinax because by hard work and competence, he went from the son of a freed slave to become an emperor for 3 months in 193. He was the first of the emperors in the year of the 5 emperors. So kind of, he came directly after Commodus. He did get murdered by his own praetorians. So perhaps he wasn't, his faults weren't put up with so well by some of the others. I love it, Clive, Asterix, Linda Hatcheput. Yes, of course, the first female ruler that we really know something about in history. Absolutely, she's a classic. Rebecca Buchanan, Tiberius, and Gaius Gracchus, the Gracchi. Their subdivision of land was not created out of pure altruism, but it did decrease the wealth of Rome's biggest tyrants. There we go, brilliant. Ian Eastwood, Themistocles, another favourite, absolutely. T.C. Metin Yilmaz, you've talked about Hector of Troy, and you've gone for 2. Not sure if that's allowed in the rules. Prometheus. Prometheus is wise, creative, and intelligent. First of all, he's opposite to Zeus as a human friend and gives fire to humans and thus knowledge to humanity. Kind of what a guy. Shame that Zeus didn't quite see it that way. Clive Nefertiti, Tamara Manuel, Cyrus the Great. Really interesting. If you've been watching the documentary in the UK on the BBC about Persia and the art of Persia in recent months, there was a great deal done about how Cyrus the Great was an extraordinary bringer together, benevolent as well as strong ruler where need be. A couple of you gone for Augustus, of course, classic Roman Emperor Augustus. I know there's some Augustus fans out there. Vilaya Inyala Mihaila has asked about Hippocrates, the kind of founder of modern medicine. As yourself, Vilaya, you two are a doctor, kind of thinking about Hippocrates as your hero. Brilliant, absolutely great. Who else have we got here? Boudica. Patricia Robinson, you've gone for Boudica, absolute classic. And Constantino Trippi, Athena as well. You've kind of named Athena as your as your hero. And we've got a couple more of these. Franco Mikopoulou, you've gone for Hannibal. Interesting, really interesting choice. I love this. Toby Tuvia, Xenophon. Catherine Anstey, Hypatia, absolutely brilliant. And Mary Chubb, Anaximander, anticipating Isaac Newton in 700 BCE. Brilliant. Livia has been mentioned once or twice, Clive, but she wasn't a classic favourite. Really interesting, your list. And I love the fact that some of you kind of just sort of tied over those flaws a little bit, perhaps too much. So kind of just keep questioning your loyalties, keep thinking about those flaws. Every great ancient hero is a hero because they are flawed in some way or another. Otherwise, they'd be deadly dull. Hannah's asking, hi Prof, I'm studying classics at the minute. Would you recommend studying it joint at uni? I also really love English. Hannah, I would always recommend studying classics at university. Absolutely. The great thing about it is that it's a subject that you can mould to the sorts of study you like. If you like more literature and language, you can do that. If you like more history, you can do that. If you like more art, architecture, and archaeology, you can do that. You can make and match between the Greeks and the Romans, or push the boundaries out to a wider set of ancient civilizations as well. You can have great fun with classics. If you want to do it in conjunction with another subject, absolutely, why not? The two have classic links between classics and English, obviously, thinking about literary influences. Classics and languages is another great way of doing it. Ancient and modern history is a great way of doing it. So do carry on with your classics into university. Christopher, when will your series be available on commercial download? None of the DVD or commercial download issues are sadly, kind of in my bequest. We have to wait on the BBC. That some have been put out to DVD. The Invisible Cities series are mostly available on DVD. Sicily, I know that was repeated recently, sadly is not. But fingers crossed that the BBC will change their minds in the near future. Claudius, what do we think about Claudius, everyone? Let's throw that out there. But I have another question to throw out to you all, which I want you to reply to over the course of the week through the Facebook page, and we'll put a post up about this on the Facebook page as well, which has come in, and it came in live last time, but I didn't have a chance to respond to it. Toby Tuvia, who has said, could you recommend any books on the use of ancient classical heritage nowadays? So do send in your thoughts for Toby. I want to suggest that if you have a look at the Oxford University Press series, which is called Antiquity and Its Legacy, and then they have a whole series of books that are along that theme. So there's religion, antiquity and its legacy, slavery, death, politics, sex, race, gender, antiquity and its legacy. These are really, really good starting points that have all been written by the scholars in the field. So that's a great starting point. But do please send in your suggestions as well for different books thinking about the use of ancient classics and its heritage and its relevance for the modern day world. So do please send in your suggestions to the Facebook page for that. But I also, I'm getting overcome with all the excitement of your questions and answers coming in. Latifa has been in touch with a question, which I think is also one for the Facebook page, and would love you to respond to this across this week. We all like a good gift shop. We do indeed, Latifa. So the question is, what is your favourite museum or heritage site gift shop purchase? And why? So, what is your favourite museum or heritage shop, gift shop purchase, and why? So send in your answers to this. You can either do it live now or indeed on the Facebook page, facebook.com/ProfMichaelScott over the next couple of weeks, and we will read these out at the beginning of the next Q&A. Absolutely brilliant. I just saw a question come up there on the live feed about Hagia Sofia. This is an incredible moment that some of you may be aware of, thinking about the fact that Hagia Sofia, having been made a museum rather than a place of either Christian or Islamic worship by Ataturk, the founder of the modern Turkish state, it has now been decreed that it will start being used again as a mosque for the practice of Islamic worship. Now, this has been quite a long time coming. For several years now, it has been made legal, been made possible for the call to prayer, Islamic call to prayer, to happen from the minarets, a recorded call to prayer, not a live call to prayer, to happen from the minarets of Hagia Sofia. And when we were there filming Invisible Cities Istanbul, that was recently reshown on British TV on the BBC in late 2017, it was very clear that groups on a regular basis would sort of break forward, jump over the cordons to start worshipping, and that they would be pulled back by the guards with some kind of reluctance, I think is possibly the word to use. So clearly the rules had been relaxed somewhat. So it's not a huge surprise, I think, that they haven't taken that next step and made it once again a place for a proper Islamic worship. Now, I'm presuming, and I haven't seen the details on this, that there will still be the potential for Hagia Sophia to be accessible regularly as a tourist venue, just as the Blue Mosque is on the other side of the road, in between services. But I think it will have a knock-on effect for its availability to tourists as they come to the site. And I think it is a very, very big marker in Turkey's changing and evolving story, and particularly for the city of Istanbul, which is by tradition a much more kind of European-looking, Western-looking, open, relaxed, non-traditional city within Turkey. And I think kind of this will be taken very, very seriously by a number of the community there. So we look forward to seeing how this story develops further. But I didn't ever buy anything in the Hagia Sophia Museum gift shop, but the story I wanted to share with you, Latifa, in response to your question for what is my favourite gift shop purchase, is this. We've already had one in from Mark Gannon, a wearable Roman soldier helmet. You bought a Roman soldier helmet? Oh, I'm so jealous. I've often been tempted to buy one of those like real life-size hoplite helmets that you can sort of put on kind of here. Phil, a kind of online shop, but the Egyptian Senate game, good one. My one comes from when I was in Lebanon, and I was visiting the site of Baalbek. Right, so this is the extraordinary Roman temple site in Lebanon, with some of the biggest Roman temples ever constructed. In fact, where you can see the biggest single pieces of stone ever carved by the Romans are at Baalbek in Lebanon. But when you go to Baalbek today, you do actually have to go into an area of Lebanon that is very much a territory which is at the heartland of Hezbollah. Now, kind of, you can move through very easily as a tourist and go to the site, obviously, but I've never quite seen a site like it, because when you turn up at Baalbek, there are none of the gift shops and tourist sellers that you sort of normally expect to see outside these kinds of archaeological sites, selling you everything from, I don't know, a fresh orange juice through to kind of a small cat, through to kind of anything else, or models of the Roman temples that you're about to go and see. No, at Baalbek, when I visited, there was only one gift shop experience, as you might call it, which was one individual vendor selling T-shirts saying, "I love Hezbollah" on them. And you were faced with the quandary that you weren't quite sure that if you didn't buy one of these T-shirts, whether you would be marked in some way and some harm might come to you for the rest of your trip. But if you did buy one of these T-shirts, had you, as a result, directly or indirectly funded what many consider to be terrorism? So kind of this was the dilemma that one was faced with outside of Baalbek, and I shall leave you guessing as to whether or not I ended up buying the T-shirt. But it kind of that is certainly my favourite, or most memorable, rather, gift shop experience. I love, Clive, you got bought a fake terracotta figure of a Greek lady at Ephesus. Brilliant, which turned out to be genuine. I hope not. Kind of thing. Good to hear what other stories of your favourite gift shop experiences that you have. So do please send those in. We must get on to some of your fantastic questions that have come in as time is running away from us. Sarah Scotty, you've been reading a book about British folklore. It mentions in passing Prince Brutus of Troy, who discovered Britain, and you're asking about kind of this story. Yes, indeedy. So, who knew? Brutus, descendant of Aeneas, of course, the founder of Rome, or kind of pre-founder of Rome and descendant of Troy. Brutus is supposedly the first king of Britain. And now, sadly, we don't hear about this in the ancient Roman sources, but we first hear about it in the 9th century in something called the Historia Brittonum. And then again, we hear about it more famously, actually, in the 12th century history written by Geoffrey of Monmouth, the Historia Regum. So that's kind of where this story has come from, and it's part and parcel of, a very interesting outlook that by the time the 9th to the 12th centuries, the historian chroniclers of early Britain are seeking to tell a story that links Britain all the way back through to the Romans. So you can see even in this period, the sort of tie, the pull of Rome, or at least being connected to the story of Rome, and through that to the story of Troy and to the great Greek stories of mythology, are very important. So that's where Brutus comes from. Chantal de Brion, your daughter, Jordan, has asked a question through yourself. So do please encourage Jordan and your other children, if there are any, to come and ask their questions in and of themselves. But has asked about the Library of Alexandria. Did it really exist? And if so, what happened to it? She's a complete bookworm. Jordan, brilliant. Love it. Absolutely brilliant. Yes, the Library of Alexandria did exist. It was known formerly as the Museion, right, the place dedicated to the Muses. And it's thought to hold somewhere between sort of 40,000 to upwards to 400,000 scrolls. So this was a ginormous library. Really comes into its own after the era of Ptolemy II. So Ptolemy II, one of the Ptolemaic rulers of Egypt, in the years and decades after the death of Alexander the Great, when one of his generals, Ptolemy, came to control Egypt. And its heyday is really from that time through until the era of Ptolemy VIII, who's a bit of a kind of anti-intellectual, Ptolemy VIII, and he actually starts to sort of purge intellectuals from Egypt. The curator, head librarian of the Library of Alexandria at this point leaves Egypt in a big huff, and so the library starts to slowly lose its preeminence. We know that Julius Caesar kind of may well have burnt part of it down when he turned up in 48 BC, but it struggles on all the way through into the 3rd century, the end of the 3rd century CE, when they stopped taking new members, no more library cards at the end of the 3rd century CE, and then kind of it's demolished, it falls sort of towards when there's a few misplaced Egyptian rebellions against Roman rule at the end of the 3rd century CE, and then the sort of sister part of it that had been put up in the temple of the Serapeum, the temple to Serapis, one of the great Egyptian gods, that was formally closed down and destroyed when Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire through the course of the 4th century. So there wasn't the sort of single fire that destroyed it. There was a very slow decline of the great Library of Alexandria. But it still lives on, because why is Amazon's Alexa called Alexa? It's called Amazon's Alexa after the Library of Alexandria. There you go. So the Library of Alexandria still lives on. So, Jordan, whenever you use Alexa, you are indeed using the Library of Alexandria. Brilliant. Karen, Bibi has asked, you're currently reading and enjoying The Children of Jocasta by Natalie Haynes. It's a great book. You've also loved Madeline Miller's Circe and Pat Barker's Silence of the Girls. What other fictional retellings of the classics would I recommend? Do throw your suggestions in here. Margaret Atwood, back in 2005, a Penelopiad. That's really worth having a look at. Emily Hauser as well, with her trilogy that she's written, looking at the Trojan War, the story of Jason and the Argonauts, and also of the Amazons, the Greeks and Amazons. Emily Wilson's recent translation of the Odyssey as well. It's not a sort of non-fictional retelling, but it is a really powerful and important retelling, kind of by a woman, changing the gender perspective and lens through which we read the Odyssey. So that's really worth having a look at as well. Bashma Ali, you've been asking about, to what extent did the Greeks construct their identity through the perceived other? And you've been reading Edith Hall's analysis of Aeschylus's Persians. Thanks so much for this. But you're wondering how other Greek polis constructed their own identities. This is a really, really great question. Thank you so much indeed for dropping it in. So it's really quite interesting, isn't it, that as Edith Hall adventures in her book, it's really only after the Persian Wars and invasions of the 5th century that Athens and the Athenians in particular, through their tragedies, but equally more generally through other aspects of their culture, start to otherize and demonize the Persians as sort of this degenerate, feminine other that is the antithesis of everything that the Athenians themselves want to be. In fact, before that, we know that there was a much more, a wider spectrum of respect and indeed liking for Persian culture. In Athens, people would often be wearing Persian styles of dress. It was a bit of a fashion trend at one point in that place before that. But other cities within the Greek world took very, very different stances on what the other was. So if you went to Sparta, for instance, in Sparta, if anyone came from even the next door town, let alone Persia, they were considered and talked about as being a foreigner, right? You didn't even need to come from anywhere, any other Greek town. You were a foreigner. You weren't a Spartan. So they take a very, very kind of dramatic view of otherness, which is everyone bar themselves. But you could also think about the Ionic Greek cities along the coast of Asia Minor that have to live and mix and have a much more complex heritage linking directly into the world of the Persians. How are they conceiving of their identity? Think about the Greek cities in colonies in North Africa, places like Cyrene, for instance. How are these people conceiving of themselves, both vis-a-vis mainland Greece and vis-a-vis the native communities in Africa that they are coming into contact with? Think about the Sicilian and southern Italian Greek cities as well. How are they conceptualizing of themselves in relation to the mainland? Often you find these Greek cities in Sicily and southern Italy fought and worked a lot harder to prove their credentials as Greeks, as real Greeks, much harder than sometimes the cities of mainland Greece did. People at the edges of an identity often will kind of fight harder to be part of that than people who are so obviously part of it at the centre. So lots to be thinking about there, particularly in terms of how different Greek cities did it in different ways. I want to break really quickly. Thanks very much indeed for your great suggestions coming through on things to read. That's absolutely brilliant. I'm going to break very quickly to do what's in the news and what's new. Some of you may have been coming across this, and we put all these links on the Facebook page, The Changing History of Pergamon. They've found material dating back to the 6th century BC at Pergamon, which is really extending back in time our history and understanding of the city, which much more normally comes from the Hellenistic and into the Roman period. They found Roman coins at a racecourse. Good old metal detectorists are out and about. Sensational find offers clues in the hunt for Cleopatra's tomb in Egypt. They found 2 mummies of high status individuals who lived at the time of Cleopatra have been discovered at Taposiris Magna. So we could be on to it there, finally, Cleopatra's tomb. They found a Roman bath in Baden, the city that is the baths, that has a long history of being the baths. Now they found a Roman bath at Baden. Absolutely brilliant. In Athens, in the Piraeus, the digging of the new Metro line 3 towards Piraeus, has included large-scale salvage excavations at unusually deep depths, which has found things that have been preserved where oxygen normally would have ruined them, but actually they found rare wooden remains from homes and even tree branches from antiquity that haven't been oxidized and destroyed because they're so deep down in the ground. This is brilliant. Now, this is extraordinary. In Sicily, if many of you like Sicily, as I know many of you do, and if you go to Agrigento, there many of you will have seen the enormous sort of Atlas, colossal statue of Atlas that lies out on the ground on the site that once was part of the great temple of Olympian Zeus at Agrigento, and you can see models of it, and another one of the standing atlases inside the museum at Agrigento. Now, Sicily have announced, the city's archaeological parts have announced that they are going to raise upright the lying down atlas on the site so that you can get a sense of how extraordinary this building was. The atlas, when it was raised, was just half the height of the Temple of Olympian Zeus. The entire temple was something like sort of 16 plus meters was the atlas, I think it is. And the size of it is basically, the size of the entire temple is basically a football pitch in size. So they're going to raise that up from the ground and put it standing again. Google has launched a hieroglyphic translator powered by AI brilliant. So you can have some fun with your hieroglyphs. What's on? If you want to know a little bit more about Delphi, who doesn't want to know a little bit more about Delphi? I've done 2 podcasts recently about Delphi. One for History Hack podcast, where you can see the link on the website, and also one for History Hit TV if you have a subscription for History Hit. And of course, on our Warwick Classics Network Stoa resources, there are some more great Persia resources from Parswood Classics that are now available. Things that are on, co-produced by the Getty Museum and the Troubadour Theatre Company on the Getty Museum YouTube channel is going between July 19th and August 16th, 2020. They're going to be doing the Odyssey, a kind of a version. It recounts Homer's 24 books in 5 webisodes of 15 to 20 minutes each. This looks brilliant. There's going to be on Friday the 31st of July at 11 a.m. and Wednesday the 5th of August at 5 p.m. online talk by Dr. Chris Naunton on Alexander the Great, buried 3 times in Egypt, but where are those tombs? We'll put these links on the Facebook page. And as some of you may have seen, I've been tweeting on the 25th of July, there's going to be a live broadcast from Epidaurus. They're doing Aeschylus's Persians in a live broadcast from the great ancient theatre of Epidaurus. So get in touch with that if you can and watch that. I know I definitely will be watching that. We are almost out of time. Do we have time for one more question? Yes, we do. J. Matthew Reaver, I've loved to understand more about how rivers featured in the survival and expansion of empires in the Mediterranean. Roads people think of all the time, but actually, given the recent discoveries of Roman riverboats, absolutely in coal mines in Serbia, made you realise you knew nothing about how rivers were utilised. How were they utilised? Great question. Thank you so much indeed for this. Rivers in all sorts of ways proved incredibly important trade points. First off, we spoke a little bit in a previous Q&A the other week about how Palmyra, sitting on the Roman border with the with the Parthian Empire and then subsequently with the Sassanid Empire, but Palmyrian traders were often using the Euphrates as a way of getting down quickly into the Indian Ocean, and then goods coming back from India would be brought upstream a certain way, but then of course it became very difficult to get them upstream, so then the goods would be offloaded off the river and transported across land, which was considered often a more dangerous way to do things because of potential nomadic attacks. So the river was used wherever possible. Thinking into Egypt, of course, the Nile is an obvious example of a crucial river that really kind of made not just trade possible, but life possible within Egypt. But I'm thinking of what the Romans did and what we focused on a little in the ancient invisible cities Cairo, where near in what is modern day Cairo, the Romans then dug a canal to go from the Nile all the way to connect into the Red Sea, an early, if you like, Roman Suez Canal, so that they could then, as you bring that trade, all those trading vessels coming up from the great Indian Ocean crossing that they did to trade with the ports of India, when they got back to the Persian Gulf, up the Red Sea, they could then deposit their goods onto barges that could come along this canal that had been dug by Trajan et al. Then there was a Roman fort there where the canal joined in with the Nile to protect this great Roman military and trading point and military standpoint. And then the material could then be sent up the Nile, where it could then be taxed at Alexandria, where it was then sent off on ships across the Mediterranean for seas. Think also about the fact that Rome itself owed its value and importance to the fact of the Tiber, and that actually being on the river was such an important aspect of why Rome grew to be a great city, that very early on the Romans had to make a bargain with their location because the Tiber flooded regularly, and it caused the land of what is now central Rome to be often very marshy and very malarial. So it wasn't a naturally good spot for them to pick as a location to live in. But when you see some of the early Roman architecture, and thinking about when we went down the Cloaca Maxima, the great drain under Rome, the earliest aspects of which is sort of 6th century BCE, so in the era of Rome's kings, it was built in that early phase so big, not because it was needing to take all the waste from what was at the time quite a relatively small Roman population, but so that it could take the floodwaters of the Tiber and help ensure that the land of Rome did not flood as often, thus was not so prone and marshy, thus was not so malarial, thus was more livable and more sustainable for a great city to form and to be built up on the top of it. So really, Rome makes its peace with the location of the Tiber. It wants the river so much because of the trading connections it can bring, that it has to come up with a brilliant early engineering solution to be able to then make the land that accompanies that location livable in. Going forward. So thank you so much indeed for that question. Absolutely brilliant to finish off with. We are way over time. I'm so sorry we've carried on much further, longer than we should have done. Thank you so much indeed for tuning in. Absolutely brilliant to be with you. I have to tell you about the next time that we are going to meet, which is going to be on the 6th of August. 6th of August at 2 p.m. UK time. 6th of August, 2 p.m. UK time. Very much hope that you will be able to join me. Benjamin Russell has said the River Styx was quite the thoroughfare. Yes, it was indeed, indeed. Thanks very much, Benjamin. There we go. Carry on up the Styx. How about that as a final idea for a carry-on film? I think this would be absolutely brilliant. Quite the thing. Thank you so much for your carry-on suggestions. Thank you so much for your hero suggestions. Do come back on your best museum or heritage site gift shop experience to the Facebook page. And in the meantime, stay safe, stay well, look after yourselves and one another, and we will see you all again very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.